Hello, this is Miss Andrea, and today I have a special questions and answers session. This was originally supposed to be a live stream, and I did a whole hour, slideshows and everything. And when it was done, I realized that there was no sound, which explains why people stayed for about a minute and then left, because the sound on my live stream wasn't working. So I did another live stream. You can find it. It's about homeschool horror stories. And in the meantime, I'm turning this video into an actual polished video so you can have it. So, question number one, and by the way, these questions are based on the most Googled questions. Googled the most popular homeschool questions that come up, so forgive me if some of them seem a little weird. They are. So, first question: why do homeschoolers score higher? And I'm assuming that this is on standardized tests. Well, homeschooled students tend to perform above the national average on the SAT, usually about 72 points higher. And I think that's on a scale of 1600. And then the ACT students score almost 2 points higher, and that's a scale of 0 to 36. So, I mean, apples to oranges, but there's a good percentage higher that homeschoolers get on these standardized tests. In addition, they perform in the 77th percentile on the Iowa standardized test that people take across the country, where the mean would be 50%. Homeschoolers are performing in the 77th percentile, so that's amazing. But why is this happening? According to the Washington Post, there are two main factors for these outstanding results. Now, I don't agree with all of these factors, but here they are. The Washington Post says that the educational environment where learning takes place is one reason, and the individualized one-on-one instruction is the other. I don't agree with educational environment. I mean, chaos or not chaos, absolutely. But a homeschooler can pretty much learn anywhere sans chaos. And then we have a few more reasons that come from a homeschool site. I don't necessarily agree with these. One is homeschoolers generally come from a home that includes educated parents with higher than average incomes. The act of being able to homeschool often requires that one parent be able to work and one parent be able to stay home. The result of that isn't necessarily higher than average incomes for the family, but it may be a higher than average income for the working parent, which allows the other parent to stay home. Also, higher income parents tend to be less inclined towards divorce. This past week, Bill Gates and his wife just got divorced, and they're about as high income as it comes. So I'm going to go ahead and let that one slide. And then it says here that homeschool kids on the average watch less television than do students educated in public schools. Last I checked, kids aren't watching television at all. They're all on social media and things like that. So some of these reasons are dated, and they're just not what I'm seeing in this point in time. But what certainly is true is that homeschool students tend to perform above the national average, and the main reason is the student to teacher, who is the parent, ratio. If you have a homeschool question, please go ahead and leave it in the comments, and I will certainly answer it as soon as humanly possible. I love it when you guys leave questions in the comment section. Sometimes they spur an entire video. Wouldn't you like a video with your name on it? I know you would. So, why do homeschoolers do better in college? Well, let's start with the fact that they've done better than average on the standardized tests, on the ACT and the SAT. that alone is going to help them do better in college, because those tests do a really good job of evaluating college readiness. The ACT in particular, when you get that back and you look at how your student does, say on each line item, math, language arts, science, what have you, it's going to say the student is college ready in this subject, or the student is not college ready in this subject. And you should pay attention to that and work hard to raise those scores, because the cutoff is usually between 18 and 20 that designates readiness or not readiness in a particular subject. And without fail, students who showed that they weren't really college ready but somehow got accepted anyway and went to college tended to drop out or have a false start and have to come out and go back in and start over again. So, what do homeschoolers miss out on? I think that homeschoolers miss out on the structure of school, but they eventually do catch up and engage into that structure in the last couple of years of high school. But from a young age, usually third or fourth grade, public school teachers kind of cut parents off. They're like, I gave assignments. If the kids don't bring it in, the kids get a bad mark. Do not help them. And so that act alone gets kids more tied to that structure earlier on in life. And as homeschooling, you're there. They don't have to remember to bring it to you. And you necessarily aren't having them fill out a lot of worksheets or write a lot of papers, because you can assess them verbally because it's just you and the student. So they miss out on, setting up that structural framework of getting assignments, doing the assignments, turning the assignments in. But eventually, like I said, they do catch up, maybe a few years later. Homeschoolers don't miss out on socialization regardless of what the internet might tell you. They do experience a different social setting than you would in a public or private school, but they're rarely devoid completely of a social setting. It's just different. I've also noticed that homeschoolers might mature a little bit slower than public and private school students, because parents can decide when to broach certain more adultier subject matter. They can gauge the child's maturity level and broach that information at the right time. Whereas in traditional school, they kind of have to hit the early maturers when they give out that information. And so kids are kind of forced into more mature knowledge before everyone is ready. Like, some of the kids are ready, so everyone has to hear it. And so homeschoolers, parents get to gauge and take their time with that a little bit. And that causes, a little bit more innocence in the childhood. What do homeschoolers need to graduate? To graduate, homeschoolers need for their parent to decide they are done. That is all. In most states, to graduate, homeschoolers just need parents to sign off that the work is done and to print a diploma. Now, state laws say that there should be, every year, homeschoolers should be taught math, language arts, science, social studies. That's basically what you have to teach them, but it doesn't say what curriculum you have to teach them. It doesn't say what level. You just need to teach them at what's appropriate for them. So some might graduate not at what we would call a 12th grade or a college, sophomore level. Some might graduate when they haven't gotten quite that far. Without an IEP, but that's because IEPs aren't available in the homeschool world. So it's kind of up to the parent to decide, how much can my child do by what grade, and at what point am I going to call this done and am I going to graduate them? Now, for homeschoolers who are college bound, it is customary to look at the colleges the student wants to get into. And then you list the colleges, and then you look at the hardest of those colleges to get into. And then you go to the school website and you say, okay, what does the school require of homeschoolers? Because they have it on their website, what homeschoolers need to get into their school. And that's the curriculum. That's the checklist that parents use. And when the student is done filling out that checklist, then the parents decide that the child is done homeschooling and graduate them. But there's just not a one-size-fits-all rule. It really is individualized. Okay, somebody asked what homeschoolers look like. They look like people. They really do. Kids look like kids, and big kids look like big kids. Now, when I started homeschooling back in the old days, there were a lot of jokes about the homeschool mom uniform, and I will confess to having a couple of denim dresses. They were comfortable, and they weren't cheap. They were quite stylish. I really liked them. And I also had some denim skirts. I liked the swoosh. It was 2003. Give me a break. Homeschooling parents now pretty much just go with athleisure, which every other mom is wearing, and homeschool kids just wear whatever the trends are. Once again, if you have a question, I am glad to answer it. So put it in the comments, and I'll either answer it right away, or I'll make a video, or I'll answer it right away and then make a video. Lots of options here. What do homeschoolers like? Okay, this is another one of those questions. I think homeschoolers like ice cream. We also like less judgment, like literally get off our backs, right? So it's just a really hard making the decision that everyone's not making to homeschool, and then having people who feel some kind of way about that decision come down on you. What I've learned over the years, over the many years, is that people feel judged by your decisions because you've made a decision for yourself that they could not or would not make. They literally feel like you are looking at them sideways for not making the same decision. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I guess we need to reassure them that the way they're doing it is fine. We've just chosen a different path, but we really could use less judgment and lots of ice cream. So that's all I have for now. Somehow I spoke about this for almost an hour today. And when I was done, my video had no voice. I had no voiceover. So have a great week. I'll see you for the next live stream on Saturday at 11 a.m. should it work this time. And so until next time.